guys, it's Sunray, and welcome back to the My So-Called Thoughts podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're doing well. Hello, hello, everyone out there listening. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I'm your host, Sunray. I am a wife, mama, and musician. And like I say every week, I wanted to start this podcast. And on this podcast, we pretty much just talk about some of the things that I'm thinking about. I feel like most people are probably thinking about these things, but these are things that nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to address, no one wants to get off their chest, but I do. And I like to also talk about topics that, you know, are just things that we're kind of dealing with as a society, as human beings, and just how to heal from things that we're dealing with, all that type of stuff. So thank you so much for tuning in again. Wherever you're listening to this from, if you didn't know, just want to let you know that you can stream this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Anchor. Please subscribe, leave a comment, the YouTube video or just anything, or leave a review. That really helps out a lot. So thank you so much. And also follow the Instagram page, which is at My So-Called Thoughts Pod. I always post on there when the podcast is coming out, although the podcast is always dropped every Thursday, typically at 3 p.m. Eastern time. But if I'm going to be, posting anything extra or anything, please tune in there. Or if there's any technical difficulties, I will always mention it there. So be sure to follow the Instagram page. And of course, share the podcast with your friends and family. Share it with a friend if you liked it. Even if you didn't like it, share it anyway. But I never like to kind of waste time when I want to talk about something. I kind of just like to dive in, but always just got to preface it, because you never know who's listening for the first time. But something I've been thinking about, and I feel like I think about this like all the time, especially like every time something happens, is the over-sexualization of women in today's society. And I feel like we primarily see it like in the media and in entertainment, but because social media is so big now, and just things like that, I just feel like everyone kind of sees it, everyone notices it, and then it kind of trickles down onto society and on, maybe your average everyday woman that isn't in the entertainment industry or media. So I just want to talk about it. I will say, I feel like I need to stop doing like these controversial podcasts because it might get a little controversial, but whatever. I feel like there are some things that like I want to talk about that may be controversial, and I've said this before, but it's not often that I do this. At least I don't think so. I don't know. But it's also, it's not often I'm going to talk about like politics and stuff like that, because it can get divisive, and that's not what I want this podcast to be. So I typically like to stray away from certain controversial subjects, but this one I was like, nope, I'm talking about it. I don't care. Um, Again, the over-sexualization of women in today's society. And I feel like there's so much to talk about here. There's so much unpack. So I don't even know like where to start, but I'm going to start. um, I feel like typically whenever I start talking about something, I try to start talking about like my personal experience. So I guess I'll start there. How things were when I was younger, how I grew up, what I saw, what I see now, and, things like that. One thing I can say is, and I feel like I always say this, is that things have drastically changed from when I, was raised, or, how I grew up, and especially like how women were sexualized. It's just completely different in comparison to like when I was younger than what it is today. And, I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was born in 1994. And things were just completely different. And, I remember growing up, we had the legends, the icons, the Christina Aguilera, we had Beyonce, Destiny's Child, we had Leah, Britney Spears. There was just so many icons and legends where like I'm sorry, I I'm rooting for all the women in the music industry and entertainment and things like that, but like music don't hit like it used to. I'm just gonna say that, okay? And as I grew older, though, but becoming a teenager, we had Rihanna. She rose to fame. We had Katy Perry, so many others, and obviously these are not the only women out there. There's so many other women in different genres, But I feel like I want to specifically like kind of talk about like pop culture because this is kind of what you're seeing all the time. This is what gets pushed. Unfortunately, other genres don't get pushed enough, and I'm not here to debate that. That's just kind of the reality. I know country is big, but it's only like if it's only like really big in certain areas. I feel like with pop culture, again, it just gets, pushed more. It's kind of what is in our face more, even before social media. Going into like the music aspect, I remember, music for women was just so much different, growing up. And I don't mean like music for women, I mean like women artists that would make music. Obviously, you had your Britneys and the Christina Aguileras and Beyonces and different people. And of course, they have, fans from both genders, male and female. But when you think about it, like, come on, us young, like I was a super fan of Britney Spears and I was like in kindergarten, you know what I mean? So my point essentially is just that I don't think that there were many little boys in kindergarten that were like blasting Oops, I Did It Again. Maybe, but when you think about it, that's just my point. But anyway, I just remember, growing up, a woman could release a song and her clothes didn't have to be too small for her. I remember she could sing a song that actually like meant something, something about her heart being broken or wanting to make a change in her life, something like that. And it was widely received. It would be off the charts. I mean, not off the charts, but like blasting on the charts that it'd be off the charts, I guess. And, it would be hit after hit, you know? And, when I grew up, I do feel like you kind of got half and half. I'm sure it was different before then, but I can only speak from, from my personal experience and what I grew up with. By half and half, I mean that, like, you'd have like the songs where they would be, um, more a little like sensual or sexual, or whatever, but then you'd also get those ballads and you would actually get like really good music that wasn't just that you know, take Britney Spears, for example. Like, look at her career as a whole. Hashtag free Britney. Um, look at her discography and look at her music. If you just go look, like, as, from her first album going on, as time went on, she became more and more sexualized. Like, look at Baby One More Time. Crazy. And then look at Toxic. Just the music video alone. Look at the music video for Toxic. And it's just interesting to me. And what's crazy is that in my personal opinion, Britney Spears is extremely talented. She can sing, she could dance. I think that she's she's been in a movie or two, you know, extremely, extremely talented. Like there was never, at least for me, like there was never a question of her talent growing up. Her choreography, her it factor, just all of it. And the reality of the question, like, to me is like, did she have to get sexual? Did she have to get, half naked? Like, did this actually have to happen for people to continue to care about her and continue to be invested in her music and invested in her career? That's the golden question to me. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. You know, I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, girl, everybody knows sex sells. Everyone knows that. Like, get with the times. Okay, then I'm done with the podcast, like, case closed. We're done talking. But yes, I obviously know that, right? But does it have to? And that's kind of what I want to talk about. And, what is the motive? Like, what's the real motive behind it? And I'm not trying to get into the conspiracy side, all right? That may be another podcast. And I know y'all probably sick of me saying that. But, like, is it truly women empowerment? That's kind of what I want to talk about. And, let's look at Christina Aguilera. Love Christina Aguilera. Remember Reflection from Mulan? And What a Girl Wants? What a Girl Wants? Like, classic hits from the 90s, okay? And I remember those songs like Clockwork. I still be playing them low key when I'm in my like 90s and early 2000s mood. Christina Aguilera has a voice like no other. Her talent is matchless. Like, she even showed that she can sing and dance too, which that's what everybody did in the 90s and early 2000s. If you could sing, you could dance, and And then she came out with like her album Stripped. And, she came out with Dirty and other popular hits. And hold on, I have to just say this really quick. I am not hating on the classics of Dirty and Toxic, like from Britney Spears and stuff like that. Like, I'm just trying to make a point, okay? Because those are, songs that I used to blast and everything like that. So just hear me out. But it's just interesting to think about. Coincidentally enough, I was scrolling on TikTok the other day and I came across this interview. It was an older interview of Christina Aguilera. I think that like Entertainment Tonight's TikTok posted it or something like that. It looked like it was like her stripped album era that this interview was from. And she was basically saying she wanted to ditch the good girl vibe. She knows people would think the album has a sexual connotation to it, and she doesn't care. She's just being herself. But why does this sound familiar? Like I feel like I and everybody else has heard this same speech. Now don't get me wrong, again, I love Christina Aguilera, I love Britney, I love all these female artists. Like this isn't hate to them. I'm just trying to get to a point, okay? Stay with me. It's just interesting to me that most, if not all these women who are topping the charts, they have the most talent. It's impeccable. They end up becoming extremely sexualized. And then, like I said, a few moments ago, like what changed to make that necessary? And then, why did they all come out with the same statement? Saying that like, oh, it's always who they were. They don't want to be known as the good girl, and they want to shake the cookie cutter image. And now they're dancing half naked. They're being sexual. That's what like 3/4 of their album is about. And all of their mainstream songs that are now popular, instead of the ballads, instead of the songs about life and about growing and growth and all that type of stuff, it's the sexual songs that are now being pushed and that are now in the forefront of what we're seeing, in society. I did try to look up like some statistics because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, so all these young girls are fans of Britney and Christina and like different other artists. So who are you being sexual for? Because if you're being sexual for these young women, that's weird, right? And I don't think that that's what it is. You may say, well, they're doing it for the men, but is men even their demographic? You know what I'm saying? So this is kind of what I was, thinking about. So I tried to look up some statistics. Maybe I wasn't typing in the right thing, but I couldn't find any. I was trying to find like statistics of who bought, each album and stuff like that. Maybe I was looking in the wrong place. Maybe I need to dive, just a little bit deeper. So I wasn't able to find that. I may still look into it a little bit more. Um, but, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, yes, we're men fans, of course. But I don't know. Like, and I'm not a guy, okay? And maybe I'll ask my husband just to get his like 2 cents. But it just makes me wonder, like I feel like people probably, even men, probably still just liked their music. It wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, she's half naked, so I'm going to listen to the song." Like maybe they watched the video because of it, but I don't know. Like are they actually going to buy the album? I don't know. This is kind of what I'm talking about. That's just interesting to me. Like who's it for? Why is it taking place? You know? Like again, it was probably younger women, of course older women as well, are listening. But what is it really for? If they were already popping off, selling, selling so many records, exceeding on the charts, doing really well, then why was there sudden change in course of over sexualization? And like really think about it. If the fan base is younger female or older females, and then yeah, you have a male demographic as well, but may not be as high, and they're also heterosexual women, then who again, like who is it for? Like for what? You know? Cuz it's not for the fans. I don't know. My opinion. I'm a heterosexual woman, and growing up, I I didn't gravitate towards these women because they were half naked. I just like the songs, you know? And it's just interesting to me that you have people like Christina Aguilera, Britney, others, there's so many others, that now they criticize the music industry, saying that their careers were mishandled and things of that nature. Christina Aguilera talked about it. Britney has talked about it, and other artists. So it's like All that for what? Now you hate the music industry. But I thought it was you, right? And again, I am in no way shaming these women because I'm sure that there was probably if it really wasn't them, there's probably some type of coercion and in contracts, and they were probably told they have to do this stuff. But you get my point that there's a pattern here, right? Look at Rihanna, okay? I love Rihanna, and I wish she would drop an album, okay? Anti was so good. And I also love her makeup. Fenty Beauty is really good. She came out with her first two albums, Bone to Replay, SOS, Unfaithful, all these, bops. And, she was dancing, and you could say, well, she was sexual there, but, yes and no. Like I said, it was kind of half and half. And then there was just this shift. Her album was literally called Good Girl Gone Bad. But Rihanna was already famous. She was already on the rise. And the same shift. All of a sudden, she's a bad girl, extremely sexual. And then there you go. There you have it. Rihanna was already releasing nothing but bops. Again, why did the shift have to take place? Again, this pattern, it just became so common, and it happens every time, and it's the same story every time. It's I want to break the mold, I want to break out, I want to do this, and blah, 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 blah. Like, these are extremely talented women. They can sing, they can dance, some of them even act. They release all these great songs. They're selling so many albums. They hit number one, and all of a sudden they change. And then here we go. They mask it as self empowerment or some type of woman empowerment BS. And I just can't stand it. And it happens so much in pop culture. Why is a women's self empowerment have to be linked to being sexual? But then they say a man only looks at us, they only want our bodies. Which I'm not justifying like gross men. I'm not in any way justifying it. But you get my point of like, you're doing nothing but sexualizing yourself, and then you're upset that men sexualize you. I'm not excusing any type of disgusting behavior from any men that do disgusting things to women. But again, my point. They sit here, women. These women. They'll say, "Yeah, I'm owning my body and all this other type of stuff, and I'm being free." And if you're not doing that, then somehow you're a prude. And you may say, "Well, duh, duh. Sex sells. Remember." I know that. Okay. I just hate that as a society we have accepted and allowed this type of falsehood for women to take place. And it's just gotten worse and worse, as time has gone on. And there's other examples. Look at Miley Cyrus, Disney's sweetheart in Hannah Montana. I grew up with Hannah Montana, loved Hannah Montana. When she loved Hannah Montana, the show, she tried to kind of break the mold. Like, oh my God, I'm going to go back to this. And it's crazy how society has become more sexualized. I don't know if anyone will remember this, but I just thought of it and I remember it distinctly. She came out with her album, I think Time of Our Lives. Party in the USA was on that album. When I Look at You, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, she came out with that album. And then she performed at the Teen Choice Awards, I think it was. I used to watch that all the time. That's why I remember this stuff. And I remember she came out on, you would think it was like an ice cream like an ice cream bar, like the ones that like an old school push, they push around, and there was a giant pole on it. And she was like dancing on the pole and dropping on the pole. And I remember back then it was so controversial. Everyone was like, she did that on purpose. She's trying to pole dance. I don't know how old she was at the time. I believe that she's 2 years older than me. So I'm going to guess that maybe she was 17 or 18. I really don't know, though. I'd have to go back and look at how old she was. But it was right post Hannah Montana. And I remember everyone was just so taken back. And then you had people defending, saying, well, no, she needed something to hold on to. But it was interesting because it's like you've seen artists perform on things that are moving and they have something to hold on to. But like this was clearly like if it wasn't a stripper pole, like, I don't know what you think it was. You know what I mean? It was just kind of really obvious. And I remember thinking back, I was in high school. I think I was 15 at the time. And I remember like thinking like, what is she doing? Like, why is she doing that? Is this necessary? Like, I was thinking that at 15. I was like Miley's a powerhouse. In my opinion, like she's extremely, extremely talented. And I get it. She wanted to break the mold, and after leaving Disney, she didn't want to be known as Hannah Montana anymore. And I can imagine like how hard of a mold that is to break. Of like you literally played a pop star, a kid's pop star on a show, and but you want to be a pop star now, and you kind of have to prove yourself. I know. I believe that's probably extremely difficult. And honestly, and if anything, I feel sorry for her. Like, it's sad that she felt she had to be sexual in order to like just break out of that so that people would take her seriously as an artist. um in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I probably am, like, I just feel like if she would have just showcased her talent, it may have been able to shine more for itself. Because I remember after that she came out with her Can't Be Tamed album. And and hey, look, I liked that. I liked some of the songs from the album, but it was so like overly sexual in your face. And I just feel like when it's not like natural, it just looks like you're trying too hard, in my opinion. She came out with other albums. I like, she came out with that song We Can't Stop, and which I gotta admit, I liked that song. I did. But it just comes off as like trying too hard. Like, it doesn't seem natural, At least in her case it wasn't to me. And I just feel like there have been women that didn't go the route of sexualization of their careers. All of a sudden they did fine. Like, look at Zendaya. She was on Shake It Up on Disney Channel, and then she did another show, and she was older because she said that she wanted more representation of a black character on Disney, I guess, and that's why she did it. Like, she stayed on the channel. I think the show's name was Casey Undercover. And then she started doing just mature projects, and she showed that she is a bomb actress, and she's amazing, and she's a model and everything like that too. And she showcased her talent and broke the mold. I think Selena Gomez did the same thing, and Hilary Duff. Look at Hilary Duff. I love Hilary Duff. She was on Lizzie McGuire, and she did music, and then she does some acting and stuff now. She's a mom now. She's married, and it's like, I don't know, like, there's proof that it doesn't need to happen. So what happens with these other women? There's one other part that I really want to dive into when it just comes to like women, and I'll talk about some other things shortly with it. But another aspect that has always bothered me and really grinded my gears and got on my nerves is the over sexualization of black women in the music industry and entertainment industry. And the reason why I'm specifically, again, talking about like the entertainment industry, because social media is so big now, this stuff is pushed to us that it's leaking into our society. And we have average, everyday women that are now like doing the same stuff, right? Name one black artist that isn't half naked somewhere in a music video that is dominating the charts. And I'm talking about dominating, like number one. Now, I know that there are some artists out there like her and different women that, play mute instruments and different things. But I don't know, like, I feel like even her doesn't get enough recognition. She's a black female artist, if you didn't know, and she plays guitar and stuff. She's great. But I feel like even like she'll have a song that does well, and then no one will want to talk about her anymore. You can't name one that's dominating the charts. And I'm talking about like Beyonce status. And Beyonce was sexualized too. I don't even have to get into that. Like, we know that. Look at Crazy in Love. But again, I like that. But you see my point. It's like, why does this stuff have to happen? Like, you have these young women in Destiny's Child and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, they gotta, take their clothes off and everything like that. I hate it so much though for black women, and they call it women empowerment. But how do you feel empowered showing yourself to others, knowing that men are just getting off to it? Like, I'm just gonna be real. Like, it's not for you. It isn't for you. So another example that I can think of, that really bothered me is Chloe Bailey, not her, but just the situation. You may have heard of her and her sister. They're the pop sister duo, Chloe and Halle. Halle is supposed to be the one that's going to be playing the new Ariel in the new Little Mermaid movie. So if you've heard about that, then you know who Halle Bailey is, which is Chloe Bailey's sister. The girls, they were discovered on YouTube. Again, like I mentioned, they're sisters. They would post covers of them singing various songs. They play instruments, guitar, piano. Their voices are extremely impeccable. And when I saw they were getting picked up, I was just like, oh man, like some real talent here. Like, yes, love to see it. Let's go. Me personally, I had never heard anything, or at least at the time, I hadn't really heard of anything like them. And I just thought it was awesome to see like true talent rise to fame. I just always love and enjoy seeing that. And you have, a successful, extremely successful woman such as Beyonce, um, who is just like a pillar in the music industry, picking them up. So it's like you would think, okay, well, they're going to get all the backing they need and they're going to get all the support that they need to be successful. Um, they dropped some music together. They come out with a couple songs and albums and stuff, which were pretty good. I, listened to a few of their songs and stuff. And, later it comes out that Chloe is going to come out with her own song. So Chloe is kind of like, she kind of has like the lower voice, and Halle has the higher voice, soprano and alto, if you know about that, as far as um, singing. And I was kind of excited because I'm like, oh, she's got that lower register voice. Like, I'm ready to hear the ballads. I'm ready to hear all that type of stuff. The things that we had saw originally when they were on just their YouTube channel and there was no fame and all that type of stuff. I was excited and I was here for it. Now, granted, yes, they were younger. They were teenagers. Now I think, they're like in their early 20s or something of that nature. I was super excited. Um, and lo and behold, I listened to the song. It's called like Have Mercy, or it's called Mercy. And the first line of the song, booty so big. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's just, it's a pattern, like I mentioned. Chloe comes out with her own music, and the first thing you hear is booty so big, and she's shaking her butt and all this type of stuff. And I was just like, are you serious? This pattern again of, oh, now she's breaking out and doing her own thing. Oh, so she's got to show that she's not young anymore, and booty so big and all this type of stuff. It's the same stuff. And I'm not even like hating on her, because in I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'm telling you, like, I don't think, like, sure, did she have some collaborative efforts? Did maybe she help write the song? Did she come up with it? Yes, but like, I think if these women had a choice to put out the music that they really wanted to, it wouldn't be this. And that's just my opinion. I was so let down. I'm like, oh my God, the same thing that happens with every young, not even just a lot of females, but every young black female specifically. I'm like, this girl has some serious pipes on her. She is so talented. Again, sing, dance, all this type of stuff. And like, this is what we get. This is the debut. And like, you're right. Yes, sex sells, and especially for black women, and it's horrible. And everyone talks about how black women don't have a voice and black women aren't seen. But then the black community, I'm just going to be honest, like the black community doesn't do anything to talk about this stuff and to say that, like, hey, our, black women are nothing but sexualized. We want better. They don't do that. They just say, oh, well, she's doing her thing. She's doing her thing, and she looks great, and they praise it. But in reality, it's like, again, what black woman do you see that is dominating the charts right now, that has number one after number one, that isn't half naked? You couldn't tell me. And the ones that are out there, like her and other ones, they don't get the recognition that they deserve for being singers and songwriters. But you've got Olivia Rodrigo, up and coming, and she's not shaking her butt. So, and again, I this it kind of dabbles into that, controversial aspect. You got Olivia Rodrigo, who comes out with a song that's just pure songwriting and musicianship, and she comes out and it's amazing. Everyone, she won multiple Grammys for that album. Driver's License was a huge hit. Deja Vu and Good For You and all of those different songs that went completely mainstream. Why couldn't Chloe do the same thing? So, like, this conversation, it's not even just about like women as well. It's just like women being over sexualized. And I feel like black women are especially are sexualized in today's society. I think like I think Olivia's 18. I think Chloe is, like I said, she's in her early 20s. And we wonder why young black women aren't empowered. But we wonder why women are not empowered in general. Because this is what gets pushed. Another example before I just close the chapter of talking about just young black women in entertainment is Normani. If you don't know who Normani is, she's a member, or she was a member of the band Fifth Harmony. Um, and she has yet to drop an album. She's dropped a couple of singles, and it's probably her label holding her back. I don't even know. Random singles in the last couple of years. Her first single came out in 2019. Do the math, is 2022. I think she's come out with maybe a couple since then, and maybe a few collaborations. And she's also incredibly talented too. Like, she can sing, dance. Like, in my opinion, she has like the ability to be like the next Sierra, who takes dance and puts that at the forefront of their career. And you look at Sierra. One thing like I said, it was different when we were growing up. Sierra was really big when I was growing up, and her and the Aaliyahs and the Brandies. Like I said, you would kind of get half and half. You would get some sexual stuff, but then you'd have that artistry that was just about dance and other things, and or talking about life and stuff. And back to Normani, um, you know, she's only released a couple of different singles, and it's interesting because she released a ballad. Um, and I remember she performed it on, it was like Jimmy Fallon or one of those late night shows. And it was actually a pretty good song. It was a pretty good song. Um, you may say you don't even know the name of it. Well, I don't, because I really haven't dived into her music, and it has nothing to do with with her. It's just, I just am remembering this like when it came out. But I remember I was like, oh, this is like a really good song. It's really good. And I remember, that song did not get pushed. It didn't chart at all. And it was a ballad, and she wasn't on stage shaking her butt half naked. And it's just like, why don't we push these songs? And then again, the black community will say, oh, well, it's because this is this. It's like, but you're not even supporting her when she's not doing it either. And not even just the black community, just society in general. We complain about women not being empowered, and we complain about all this type of stuff. We blame men, but we don't even want to show up when it's important. And you may say that the public doesn't care enough unless someone is like, taking their clothes off or something. And maybe that is true. But like, that's the exact problem. Everyone wants to talk about like women's rights, but nobody wants to talk about the woman's right to protect herself and her body, and to not share that with anybody. And that she doesn't have to be half naked all the time to succeed in the world. Ooh, hold on. I got another. And this is, of course, outside of black women, but Ariana Grande. Ari. I have been a fan of Ariana Grande since she was on Victorious, and she posted singing covers on YouTube, and she had less than 100,000 subscribers. I remember that. I thought she was uber talented, and I always said, if she gets a record deal, she's going to blow up. She's going to be huge, because her voice is, it's just impeccable. Her first album was called Yours Truly. It was amazing. I remember it. I was a freshman in college. I just think back to that time, 2013, the 2010s. Just amazing vibe. That album, bop after bop. She was up and coming, and I looked it up. Apparently, it debuted at 21 on the Billboard Music Chart, which, I don't know. In my opinion, I think that's pretty good for like a first album. and she really didn't have many features. She had Big Sean and Mac Miller on there, and she was from Nickelodeon, so I feel like that's like pretty good. And as far as the album, it was ballads, dance songs, and R&B vibe, but it was chill. And then she came out with her next album, My Everything. And there was that switch again. That same switch with Britney, Christina, Rihanna, Beyonce, everybody. All of a sudden, she's dancing and being sexual. And in my opinion, it wasn't super like night and day like other artists, but there was a change for sure. And I would definitely say that I bet you any like hardcore Ariana Grande fan would say there is a significant change from her first album to her second album, and an even bigger change from her second album, My Everything, to Dangerous Woman, which was her third album. And then you look at where she is today, you know? But like, do you see what I'm saying? And what's sad is that it's always the women that have the most to give and are the most talented, the triple threats, the ones who have everything to give. That have everything to lose. And it's always masked as self-empowerment. It's our worth, it's this, and I just don't understand why. I don't understand how we can claim this as self-empowerment. They say they're doing it for themselves. Maybe I'm different. I probably am. I've been told that a million times. My husband tells me that all the time. But I've never thought like, oh my God, I want to expose myself and I'm doing it for me. Like that thought has never crossed my mind, you know? And then, all these women will say that men are gross and they sexualize them. But it's like you're literally naked, covering yourself with your bare hands. You're covering, your lady parts. And you don't think a man is going to be interested? It's 1 + 1 equals 2, people. And they blame men, which are obviously not all bad and evil, but there are some trash men out there. There are. And they say that it's their fault and that they shouldn't be sexualized by them and all this other stuff. And that men are the reason why women can't do this and blah, 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 blah. And then they say that men, and then they go into the argument that women are not equal to men and all this type of stuff where it's like you're going somewhere that they don't like. I feel like that stuff doesn't even correlate in most cases. Society has allowed this to happen. We become so numb to it and we say it's okay and normal. Like, remember when I was talking about like Miley Cyrus and what she did? I remember back then, years ago, and that was like in 2009 when she was at the Teen Choice Awards singing Party in the Say, and she was on, it was pretty much a stripper pole. I remember that was so risque at the time, and everyone was like, what the heck is she doing? And I remember like, I think one day I was in a rabbit hole going down like old videos on YouTube, and that came up. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like that was so crazy back then. And it was so crazy that in the music video, like her bra was exposed. And I think like where we are now, and I'm like, oh my God, no one would even care about that now. Like Cardi B can drop WAP and nobody cares. But men are the problem. And I'm not saying that women are the problem. I'm just saying that like we talk about taking control and feeling empowered, but we don't, in my opinion, it's just a false sense of empowerment. Like if men are the disease, you're not giving them the antidote. And this isn't to point fingers either. This is not to say, well, that women are to blame for what men do. Like, no, 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 no. But this is if we as women are so passionate and we're so women forward and all this stuff that everyone claims to be, why don't we do the one thing that we can do that nobody in most cases, and I'm not talking about, assaults or anything, the one thing that we can do to protect ourselves is to protect ourselves, you know? It's sad because if you look at a lot of these women, they say the industry used them and stuff. All this stuff happens in movies too. It's all around us. We can't escape it. It's on social media. It's everywhere, and nobody complains. It's everywhere. You gotta post yourself lifting your shirt and acting like it's a candid shot. You gotta post yourself in shorts that are clearly too small for you. They're riding up in between, like all the way up to where it looks like underwear. You say you're in a relationship, a happy one, but you gotta post the butt pic. You gotta get that butt pic. Oh, now here's the cherry on the cake, or cherry on the ice cream, or the milkshake, or whatever. I got one more for you. Kylie Jenner. You probably already know what I'm talking about. Kylie Jenner has literally changed her whole body. Bigger boobs, bigger butt, bigger everything. And for what? Like, one day I was really thinking about it because I really felt bad for her. And I was like, why? And I'm not saying like I pitied her or anything, but I'm like, imagine like changing your entire body and looking completely different than how you used to look, you know? And then no one wants to talk about or question, like, I wonder if she has body dysmorphia. Like, that is very serious. And that's not funny. Like, that's a real thing. But, like, for what? Does she do this for Instagram? Like, you mean to tell me she got all that surgery for herself? She hated herself that much that she had to make the changes? Like, you really think about when people change their body. And I'm not talking about look, I would never get plastic surgery, but I don't care what other people do. Because it's not my money and it's not my body and it's not affecting me. But you think, like, when you see women get like plastic surgery, they may say like, hey, I was insecure about my chest, I wanted to lift it up, or whatever. But like, she literally changed her entire existence. Like, her body is unrecognizable to what it used to be, right? So how do you get to that point? When you think about like if people see you in public, like, yeah, of course, like, she gets shot by paparazzi here and there, but she posts a lot of sexual content on her Instagram. She gets sponsors for this type of stuff. She gets paid. Like, imagine feeling like you need to get surgery for pictures. Now, obviously, I'm in no way, shape, or form, I don't know why she really did it. But if you like really think about it, like, she always talks about she's private, she keeps everything to herself, except for that, except for exposing herself. But, like I said, I feel bad for her also because I can't imagine growing up in the public eye as a very young girl, young child, and you have older sisters that are gorgeous and they got procedures to make themselves look even more pretty and beautiful, and have that pressure to, change yourself and to fit beauty standards. And you've got, the public and social media, speaking negatively about you, and you're like 14 years old. Like, I can't imagine what that's like. But like, really, who did she get the surgery for? Like, just everyone talks about it. Like, she's unrecognizable. Like, some people just change their face. Some people get a boob job. Her entire body, everything is different. Literally everything. The only thing she didn't alter was her DNA. And maybe her hands and feet. Now, these women who sexualize themselves, I'm not saying that they're doing it for a specific person, but I just think that we live in a society that claims feminism and claims to root for women, but women have to do certain things to be put out there. And it just seems that sexualizing oneself is the only way. And again, like, we've accepted this as a society, and we shouldn't. If you want to be noticed, you got to take your clothes off. But somehow you're empowering yourself. And that's just the part that I can't get with. And that's like my overall point. There's this notion in our society that in order for a woman to feel self-empowered, she has to expose herself. She has to take her clothes off. And it's called embracing your sexuality. And it somehow just equates to having self-worth. But it doesn't make sense. And nobody wants to talk about this. No one wants to talk about how this is such a problem in our society. Why is it in pop culture and other places, movies, anywhere, that there has to be some type of sexualization of women? And what's horrible too is that it's so unrealistic. The way these Instagram photos and these pictures that you see on everywhere, and the videos on TikTok, it is so unrealistic, and it promotes unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations for men and women. You have women thinking that they need to look a certain way, and they have to be a certain way. They got to dress a certain way, and they have to expose themselves, and it's somehow accepting and loving their body. And then you have men seeing this, and then, and unfortunately, you'll have some men who think that this is all that women have to offer. which isn't right, but it can happen. Or they expect women to expose themselves. It's a vicious cycle, and it's gross. And I think that, we need to raise our children better. Like, where are the women who aren't sexualizing themselves and who believe that their self-worth comes from within and who they are and their personality and their heart and who they have to offer to the world? They aren't seen, and they don't get pushed to the forefront. Speaking of which, Tori Kelly. I love Tori Kelly. She is a powerhouse singer. She's super talented, but she should 110% be more famous. But she's not somewhere stripping on a pole. She's not somewhere half naked on an album cover. She talks about real self-worth and, finding herself. And she's a Christian, and she's dabbled into secular music, too. But no, we got to ignore her and let's push all the other women because all the other women are half naked and their butts out. Now, of course, please hear me out. I'm not hating on any of these women because, like I said, I have listened to a lot of their music. I like a lot of their music. And honestly, I like some of them. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a anti, women podcast. Because truthfully, anybody could do whatever they want. I don't care. I'm not losing sleep. I'm just, again, it wouldn't be my so-called us podcast if we're not talking about our distaste for society. Right? But I guess the thing is that I'm more so wanting to discuss that I wish better for women. I wish that we could live in a world where women, didn't have to be sexualized to be noticed and that their talent could stand alone. And I believe we lived in a world where that was a thing at one point, or it was half and half or whatever. That our wits and our brains and everything that we have to offer the world, our heart, personality, could be heard louder than anything else. Like I said, if a girl like Chloe Bailey had a debut and she could put out anything she wanted to and it would get pushed without the influence, would she have put out that song? Or would the one actress who wants to, make it big because she just loves to act, does she have to do the nude scene in the movie to get the Oscar? Or not to get the Oscar, but just anything, right? It just saddens me that the path for some women has had to be, laid out for them, includes sexualizing themselves. And then they have to sit around in interviews and act like, oh, it's just self-empowerment. It's just funny. Go listen to their interviews. They all say the same exact thing. You may say, well, what if it is self-empowerment? Why do they all sound the same, though? And why does the pattern? Again, look at the artists. Look at the pattern. It is all the same. And you can tell they're just saying it to cover up for what they're coerced into doing, or maybe even forced into doing. I'm not sure. Whether you like them or not, and I'm not, I've listened to Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo and different artists. It makes me happy at least to see that they get recognition for writing songs and for musicianship. It gives me some type of hope, especially as a musician myself. That we may not have to do it to get recognized. But like I said, my heart still hurts for Black women because they don't get pushed enough. It's sexualization or nothing. I just wish it could happen more often. We as women, we have to believe in ourselves and have self-worth based off of how we feel about ourselves. And if you're a Christian, the identity that we have in Christ. You can love your body and not have to show it. You can believe in yourself and not have to expose yourself. Confidence doesn't have to be earned by stripping down and showing everything that you have. Like I said, it's leaked into society. I can't tell you how many young women's Instagram pages, they all look the same. They all are posing the same way, butt out, leaning this way, chest this way, lifting. It's all the same. And it all comes from, like I said, the entertainment industry, all the stuff that we're fed through music and movies and everything like that. What we have and who we are is all that we have. And if we're so quick to give it all away, we'll have nothing left. And I do want to say too that this isn't even so much about like body positivity or body image. I talked about that in another podcast. This is more so about how we just live in a society that only wants to recognize the women that are sexualized. And if you're lucky and you are like the Taylor Swifts or Olivia Rodrigos or even the Megan Trainors or just different women, you may get lucky and you may not have to do it, but it's like luck, you know? Like Olivia Rodrigo blowing up, in my opinion, was just luck. And it's funny because I knew about her before she was famous too, because I saw her on like certain Disney stuff. I'm a High School Musical fan, okay? So I watched the High School Musical, the musical series. And I remember hearing her, and I think I checked out her Instagram, saw she was a singer and songwriter, and I was like, oh, I wonder like if she ever releases music one day, maybe I'll check it out. She just blew up because people thought she was talented. So it proves that although we do live in a society where women are extremely sexualized, that there is a part in society that does want to recognize just talent. But I just feel like it's not strong enough, and it's gotten worse over the years. Overall, I feel like, of course, this is just all my opinion, but as women, I can only speak for myself because I'm not a man, but I'm a woman, and I just think that we have more to offer the world than what society is telling us that we have to offer. And you don't have to be half naked. You don't have to do this or that to prove that. You can prove that you're a strong woman without taking your clothes off. You don't have to pose a certain way on Instagram. You don't have to make sure you get the likes. You don't have to do it. And I just wish the talent would ring more, but that's just kind of my opinion. um, I think that, that's why for me, when I see these strong women out there doing different things and being different, like there's this girl that went viral on TikTok. Her name is Tanner Adele, and she's a black country singer. And I've gotten a little bit more into country as I have moved to the South. But like, I love her vibe, and she's a singer and a songwriter, and I hope that she's successful. I hope that she doesn't have to put out the album and whoops, good girl gone bad. You know, I hope that. And I hope that as women that we can continue to rise up and we can be strong. We don't have to do all that type of stuff, because it's really sad, honestly, to see. But feel like I could ramble about this all day. But I'll go ahead and stop here because I don't want to just keep rambling, but I think you get the point. But if you made it to the end of the podcast, thank you so much for listening. I'm really curious to whoever out there is listening, if you have an opinion on this. We have an Instagram page, so feel free to leave a comment or send a message at My So-Called Thoughts Pod. Or if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, even if you didn't watch on the YouTube channel, feel free to leave a comment. I love looking at any comment that is there, so thank you so much for your comments. Please be sure to leave a review as well and subscribe on your platform of choice. And just let me know what you think. Are women over-sexualized in society? And what is your thoughts and experience on it? I want to hear it. I want to know. Little prayer. I hope and pray for any women out there that if you feel that you have had to be sexualized or have had to be sexual to move forward in life, that I pray that you would realize and not that you would realize that doors would open for you so that you don't have to, and that the real you can shine through. In Jesus' name. But thank you so much for tuning in again. I hope you're well wherever you are. And shout out to all the women that don't sexualize themselves. And even shout out to the women that have, but realize that they don't have to. And that what's in you and in your heart is more important than anything in this world. At the end of the day, it's all we have when everything is all said and done. Okay, so, but thank you so much again for tuning in. And this is Sunray. I'm out. Peace.